Today we're going to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene's court hearing and just some of the ways she screwed herself. And I interview Hawaii Senator Brian Schatz about his now viral moment ripping Josh Hawley on the Senate floor, what he'd like to see done on marijuana legalization and student debt cancellation, and the latest on climate change legislation. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're listening to No Lie. So this past week, Marjorie Taylor Greene was in court defending herself amid efforts to get her disqualified from the ballot in Georgia, thanks to her participation in the events of January 6th. So here are a few of the more memorable moments from that day.
In fact, you think that Speaker Pelosi is a traitor to the country, right?
I'm not answering that question. It's speculation.
You've said that, haven't you, Ms. Greene, that she's a traitor to the country?
No, I haven't said that.
Okay. Put up Plaintiff's Exhibit 5, please.
Oh, no, wait. Hold on now. I believe by not upholding the securing the border, that violates her oath of office.
Ms. Greene, did you advocate to President Trump to impose martial law as a way to remain in power?
I don't recall.
So you're not denying you did it, you just don't remember?
I don't remember.
Ms. Greene, if somebody tried to unlawfully interfere with the process of counting the electoral votes, unlawfully, that person would be an enemy of the Constitution. Wouldn't you agree?
Does it define that way? Is it defined that way?
Well, I'm asking for your understanding. If somebody broke the law in a way designed to interfere with the process of counting the electoral college votes, that person would be an enemy of the Constitution.
You mean interrupting Congress? Is that what you're referring to?
Doing anything unlawfully to interfere with the process of counting the electoral votes.
Interrupting Congress, like when the Democrats interrupted Congress and had a sit-in on the House floor and stopped Congress?
Excuse me, Green. Could you rephrase your question?
I'm entitled to ask my questions in the way I'd like to ask them, Your Honor. I ask that you listen to my question and simply respond. May I proceed?
Yes.
So if someone broke the law in an effort to interfere with the counting of the electoral votes, that person would be an enemy of the Constitution. Am I right about that?
Breaking the law is unlawful. There's been over 700 people charged for what happened on January 6th.
Right, and those people were trying to interfere with the lawful process of counting the votes for the Electoral College, right?
I would assume, yes, they did. They stopped the electoral count. Yes.
Right, and so those people would be enemies of the Constitution. You would agree with that, right?
I don't know if it defines it that way.
And I'm sorry, I just need to include one more, because here's Marjorie Taylor Greene's lawyer explaining who the real victim is in all of this.
Our country's elected leaders were victimized right here in the very halls of Congress. Representative Greene was a victim of this attack. Her life was in danger, she thought. She was scared and confused. Her children were frantic about what was going on and feared for her safety.
She feared for her safety when the mob she incited did the thing she incited it to do. Like, I know we talk about the Republican victim complex a lot, but man, when it happens, it really is just a parody of itself. All right, so that was her in court getting caught lying under oath about what she called Pelosi, and then suddenly remembering when she realizes that they have proof of it, and not recalling whether or not she suggested that Trump should impose martial law, because who among us wouldn't forget a conversation like that? And also pretending not to know whether someone who interfered with the counting of electoral votes would be an enemy of the Constitution. Now, the question in all of this is whether Marjorie Taylor Greene should be disqualified from the ballot for engaging in insurrection. The matter at hand here is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which says, and I'll shorten it here because it's long, that no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. So what we're trying to figure out here is whether Marjorie Taylor Greene engaged in insurrection. Well, it's actually pretty simple. Here is a video that Greene herself posted on her own Facebook account in the days leading up to January 6th.
America reelected Donald J. Trump for 4 more years. You can't allow it to just transfer power. peacefully like Joe Biden wants and allow him to become our president, because he did not win this election. It's being stolen and the evidence is there. There's a large group of us. We're organizing an effort to object to the Electoral College votes for Joe Biden in key states where there's real evidence that this election has been stolen. I am very convicted in what we're going to be doing on January 6th, and it's historic, and I feel it's very, very important. On January 6th, if you're able, there are going to be possibly 1 million or more people coming to Washington to be there for this historic event. It's critical for everyone to show up and show the nation who we are. We aren't a people that are going to go quietly into the night. We are not a people that are going to be thrust into socialism without stopping it.
She says you can't allow it to transfer power peacefully, meaning she was endorsing the insurrection that sought to stop the peaceful transfer of power. She says it's critical to show up, meaning on January 6th, we aren't a people that are going to go quietly into the night. We're not a people that will be thrust into socialism without stopping it. And you know what happened on January 6th? Exactly what Marjorie Taylor Greene was advocating for, the insurrection. A mob showed up at the Capitol with exactly the intention of not allowing a peaceful transfer of power. So we don't have to wonder whether she engaged in insurrection, because there's literally video evidence of her engagement in an insurrection. No one forced her to post that video onto Facebook. She made the conscious decision not only to participate in the planning of January 6th, but to proudly display that participation. Like, that disastrous court appearance that you just heard clips from proves her to be a completely non-credible actor, someone who's going to lie through her teeth under oath, someone who will pretend to have lost her memory, someone who will play dumb when she realizes that she's been caught. But in terms of the question at hand, whether she should be disqualified for engaging in insurrection, that issue was already proven well before she took the witness stand. It was proven the moment those insurrectionists followed her directions and stormed the Capitol. I think I should say this too. I don't think that she should be disqualified because she's a Republican. I honestly don't. That would be an awful precedent in terms of undermining our democratic process for partisan reasons. If Republicans want to elect a paper bag to represent them, go for it. Maybe they'd have less sexual harassment scandals if they did. So I don't think Marjorie Taylor Greene should be disqualified because she's a Republican. I think she should be disqualified because she violated the Constitution. That's it. This is black and white, and the fact that this is even still a question blows my mind. We had thousands of people storm the U.S. Capitol looking to assassinate Democrats and Mike Pence for standing in the way of Trump declaring himself the winner of an election that he lost. Marjorie Taylor Greene, among others, was responsible for that event, for stoking those lies that push those people to show up. You don't get to violate the Constitution and then pretend that you didn't just because your insurrection failed the first time. So whether that disqualification will actually happen obviously remains to be seen, but in terms of what should happen here, it couldn't be any more clear. All right, so what does happen here? The judge in that case gives both parties until Thursday of this week, the 28th of April, to file their follow-up briefings on some details that were requested by that judge. Once he has that, he'll make his decision within a week, so we should expect that sometime next week. But the judge doesn't have the final say. This decision is a recommendation for the Georgia Secretary of State, which is Republican Brad Raffensperger. It's Raffensperger who decides if Greene is qualified or not to be on the ballot. He could also say that he doesn't have the authority himself to make that ruling. In any of these cases, whether he deems her qualified or unqualified or refuses to make a ruling one way or the other, there's always the opportunity to appeal Raffensperger's decision. That would go to the Fulton County Superior Court, and their decision would be appealed to the Georgia Court of Appeals and ultimately the Georgia Supreme Court. So those are all the options. I'm not opining on what I think will happen because it doesn't matter. But I will say that we've all collectively been around long enough to know better than to put our hopes in the hands of a Republican. And granted, Brad Raffensperger did stand up to Trump when he tried to get him to find 11,780 votes in Georgia. But at the same time, Raffensperger also defends Georgia's voter suppression law. Like, we're only setting ourselves up for failure if we are actually waiting for a Republican official to swoop in like a white knight and save us. So instead of banking all of our time and energy on trying to disqualify Marjorie Taylor Greene from the ballot, as clear as it is that she should be disqualified, I think that probably the more effective use of our time is to use the circus act that is Marjorie Taylor Greene and show voters across the country that this is what the Republican Party is. When you cast your ballot for the GOP, you are supporting these people. People who are more concerned with attacking trans kids and punishing companies that don't toe the party line and calling anyone who doesn't agree with them pedophiles and banning books and stripping women of their bodily autonomy and, oh yeah, attempting to stage coups that undermine the results of a free and fair election. All while the Democrats are trying to pass legislation capping the cost of insulin and legalizing marijuana and making childcare and universal pre-K free and allowing the government to negotiate lower drug prices and weaning us off our dependence on fossil fuels. Are the Democrats perfect? God, no. But if the Democrats aren't giving you everything you want, is the answer allowing Republicans to win and getting nothing? There is a reason that Republicans rely so much on those culture war issues that are about nothing, and it's because they have zero to offer in the way of policy, in the way of making your lives better. You've got Republicans in Texas who are so corrupt, so incompetent, that they can't even keep the power on, and they get reelected. You've got Republicans in Florida who are about to leave a bunch of residents with higher taxes because their focus is on taking away Disney's self-governance status as retaliation for having a political opinion, and they get reelected. You've got Republicans protecting fossil fuel companies and leaving us reliant on petrostates while those same exact countries are waging genocides, and they get reelected. There is a reason that they focus on those culture war issues, and it's because it grabs your attention better than policy does. That's on purpose. It is a distraction because they know that if they had to run on actual agenda items, they would lose. And so instead, their strategy is to trick you with bullshit about groomers and pedophiles and socialism and wars on Christmas and on and on. Don't buy it. The fact is that we've got a choice here between two parties, and their priorities couldn't be more different. Marjorie Taylor Greene represents the future of one of those parties, and the only way to change that, it's not relying on her being disqualified by somebody else, because for every one of her who's kicked off the ballot, 10 more Marjorie Taylor Greenes are going to pop up in races across the country. It is to deliver Republicans a repudiation at the ballot box. It is to show up and prove to them that these fringe lunatics espousing fringe ideas is a losing proposition. Only when they lose, only when they are stripped of power, will they realize that they need to change course. And that doesn't happen alone. It is on us to make that happen. To listen to my interview with Senator Schatz, where we talk about his now viral moment ripping Josh Hawley on the Senate floor, what he'd like to see done on marijuana legalization and student debt cancellation, and the latest on climate change, click the thumbnail right here on the screen or check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel.